Fourth, in this case, is scale, or size. How big is that shape of that color? Okay, so those are the four. That fourth one I've already made a decision about. I have to say, I'm not really getting an idea. Okay, but this is a little too stark. Remember I said I wanted to make subtlety. So I'm going to take another color. Maybe I will. These are what we used to call secondary colors, erroneously. Orange is, yellow is red light mixed with green light. Okay, orange is a little bit more red light than green light, but it's still red and green light mixed together. So believe it or not, if I want to play with a green, using an orange isn't so crazy. It's almost the same thing. I know that seems like an odd idea, but it's true. So I can modify this green with orange if I want to make it less green. It'll also get a little bit darker because mixing colors is what we call subtractive, which means that when you mix pigments together, you always end up with less color, with less light. Okay, so this looks a little bit weird, but if you look at the color that I'm making, it's not so crazy. Desaturating it a little bit with this gray or yellow. Okay, so now if you view it by itself, this is a different version of that color. It's less saturated, it's a little bit darker. If I put that next to that, see that's better? See that? Why? Because the relationship now is become closer. See that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what color composition is about. It's like playing with these relationships. You have these three qualities in each color, playing with them, and as you make more colors, it'll start to tell a story. So let's, I don't have that much time. Talking about the fall. I don't have red in any of these, so I'm going to work on the red. Now, here's a red that I've been using a lot that you can only get from my Mary. It's called red ochre. I first bought this when I was in Italy, and there was all this terracotta tiling and stuff like that, and they had the actual color in a tube. And this is a particular, as you know, terra always means earth, right? So it's clay. It's basically clay, but clays from all different parts of Italy have all different colors. If it comes from Siena, it's called raw sienna. If they burn it in an oven, it's called burnt sienna. If it comes from Umbria, it's called raw umber. No.
And burnt umber?
No, it isn't.
Oh,
I always used to think that. No. No. Umber means
like
shadow in Italian, so it really means it's a darker umber. It's a darker earth. But there's a town called Bergamo in northern Italy, and the earth from there, raw Bergamo, is one of the earths that I use. Very beautiful color. But this one happens to be extremely opaque. It's unusual for the ochres. And so if I want a desaturated red that's opaque, I sometimes use this. Not working here, but if we take that and we...
Why do you say it's not working?
Because it clashes with that, that sort of purple color. So what if I...
Who would carry the red ochre in this country?
If you,
I tried to get it, I couldn't get it.
If you go to the Italian art store online or on phone, I call them up. They sell my Merli Artisti. It's the same one. And I love their paint, my Merli. They have one terrible flaw, which is that the colors on the tubes have nothing to do with the color inside. And then they have this very, very tiny writing. So I have to take a magic marker and big letters write what color is in each one because I can't read, especially if I have my glasses on. It's still orange. Okay, so we're going to have to, I didn't bring a pen in. Thought I did. Okay, now one of the useful advice, this was supposed to give you useful advice. One of the things that I find useful is that if you use because of the nature of paint and the nature of pigments, which is subtractive, okay? So pure subtractive models really only work in things like watercolor or printing inks, or in other words, they're all very, very transparent medium, and the pigments are all very dark. If you ever look at printing inks on a palette or on a patent, anybody ever in high school print, you put out the ink, put out yellow, what color is it? It's dark brown, right, the ink. All the pigments are very dark because they have no mass tone. They only subtract, they're filters, basically. So when you're using opaque pigments, if you mix opaque pigments together, you don't get a very good subtractive model. In other words, you don't have a lot of control over their change in hue. You tend to just gray them very quickly. And if you use just transparent colors, that also doesn't work unless you mix it with white or you make it very thin over a white ground. So my advice is, and any painters here, if you're a painter, you like write this down, try mixing always, not always, but when you're struggling with it, try mixing a transparent pigment with an opaque pigment. We call the transparent pigment glaze. We call the opaque pigments impassos. But if you mix transparent pigment with an opaque pigment, the light goes through the transparent one, bounces off the opaque one, you get much better control over. So I'm taking out this quinacridone, which is not an impasto, and see if I mix that with this. See, I can control the hue very easily. See, I can make it into cadmium red medium. If you take different colors of cadmium reds and oranges and yellows and try to mix them together, it doesn't change the color. It doesn't work. That's why artists have to buy all these different cadmiums, and they're very expensive, really. I think a tube of this Old Holland cadmium red is like $60 or something.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, but so you can see, so I can control this, and if I wanted to do it with this one, I could too. See, I could make that red if I wanted to. Okay, because this is basically orange. It's a very dark. In here, it doesn't look like anything, but see, this is a primary color, which means that it reflects red light and blue light. All the primary colors reflect two colors. They're all two colors. That's why we know red and blue aren't primary colors, because red just reflects red light, blue just reflects blue light. They each absorb two different colors, which means that they don't work as primaries in subtractive models. Now you ask me, why no science? You can see that this is science which actually is useful to me. It means that, by the way, mixing these colors has bedeviled artists for thousands of years because they didn't understand what they were doing. Doesn't mean that they couldn't make beautiful colors, but they were limited by the pigments that they had. And they couldn't make this color no matter what, no matter how much money they had. It didn't exist. They could make blue, they could make a beautiful blue, but they had to import it from Afghanistan across the sea. That's why it's called ultramarine blue. It comes from across the sea, from Afghanistan. And you can buy real ultramarine blue now. It's like $400 a tube. It's lapis lazuli ground up.
Paints that are like hues and tints, those are glazes as opposed to opaques?
Well, they mostly are glazes because they're not real colors. Okay, so you see,
Is that
Keelan, you see how that's getting better?
Yeah.
Okay? Because it's more saturated, so I have a little bit of a distinction there.
So more saturated than purple, which is
More saturated than that, right. So it's not the same saturation. And let's see how we like it with that. See, it's not so bad. Okay? We wouldn't want to put them next to each other because the value is the same. But this is a nice relationship. And if we put something between it, it might work.
saturation.
I thought you said they were lighter and paler.
What?
The colors were lighter than.
Yeah, these are kind of
you're
dark, right?
picking really dark ones.
Yeah, right.